Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno, and today we are going to be talking about Sparky and what's going on with that, and what's going on with pretty much every project I have here on my YouTube channel, but particularly we're going to be focusing on Sparky. So, the biggest question I've been getting lately is, what is going on with Sparky? Why have I stopped these Sparky videos? Why am I not live streaming? What's going on with everything, really, is the big question. So, this video is going to outline more or less the details of what I'm actually working on right now with Sparky, and hopefully it will open up some opportunities for me to actually create some videos for you guys so you can see what I'm working on, rather than keeping you all in the dark, which is kind of what's going on, right? And I might also touch on game programming and the future kind of that. I know I made a video recently about that, but things have somewhat changed, and I'm going to perhaps touch on that a little bit, but basically this video is going to be about what on earth is going on. So, first of all, one of the best ways for you to actually keep in touch with Sparky and all of that stuff is to actually follow me on GitHub, because the reason you should do that, and the reason you should follow this Sparky repository over here that you can see on the screen, is because this is really the place where you'll see the changes happening. So if you look at the commits, for example, I haven't actually been committing lately because I'm working on some very large features that will take a long time to actually complete, but you can kind of see what I've done. Okay, and you can actually browse the repository and see what's going on with that, and that's something that you can kind of keep track of if you just want to know what's happening with the project. But aside from that, let's talk a bit about what specifically Sparky is going to turn into and what I'm actually working on. So here's the deal. I'm actually working on two major features right now, which are taking a lot of time. Okay, the first of which is actually a tool rather than a feature. So what I'm working on right now, tool-wise, is actually basically a CLI generator. So Sparky CLI, as you may know, CLI standing for Common Language Infrastructure, not Command Line Interface. In this case, essentially what CLI is, and what that means is essentially it's a C++ CLI project, which enables me to essentially wrap all of the C++ engine code so that I can actually use it in C#. Okay, because the idea is we want to be able to use it, for example, if we just go to like, let's just go to something like the window. You can see that this is literally just a wrapper that wraps around all of the actual C++ code in a way, and basically this kind of in like a managed class that can actually be used in C++ land. So that's kind of the idea, or rather in C# land. So the reason this is happening and the reason this is important to the project is because it essentially enables you to actually develop applications for Sparky in C#. Now, and you might be asking me, why is that important? The reason that's important, like the major reason that's important, is for tools. Okay, so such as like a level editor, for example, or like a model viewer, or anything like that, right? Any kind of tools that actually require the engine, particularly the graphical kind of rendering side of the engine, you would want to make them in C#. Ideally, you would make them in C# and something like WPF. You can use Windows Forms, WinForms if you like, but WPF is kind of the modern way to do that. Of course, you do need to be using the engine to render everything, and then you can kind of build your interface and whatnot on top of that. And it's much better to do that than to actually use C++ and like some kind of GUI toolkit or something. That's just pretty much a terrible way to do things, unless you've got a very large team or a lot of time on your hands. That does limit cross-platform support. That pretty much means that only Windows users will be able to use it. But you know, when you think about it, or at least in my opinion, Windows is pretty much all you need for actual game development for Sparky. So if you want to use Mac or Linux to develop games for Sparky, then you can certainly do that, but you'll actually have to write the code yourself. Compiling all the scenes together might have to be done manually rather than actually using a tool like an editor. Windows is what you should use. This is kind of what everyone uses in the industry, and I think that it's pretty much the smart choice, especially because I don't have a full development team to work on cross-platform support for the tooling as well as the engine. Engine will still be cross-platform. The runtime will still be cross-platform. But anyway, The point is, that's why there needs to be some kind of CLI wrapper, okay? Now, the problem with the way that I've set this up right now is, first of all, you can see it's not complete. The only thing we've got in graphics really are just shaders and window, basically the minimal amount of classes to get something to show up on the screen. This is all done manually by me, and that's usually how you would do it, right? You would just type out the code and you'd wrap everything. The problem is, with a project such as Sparky, where the API frequently changes, and I mean really frequently, like the full complete API changes with every commit, right? Because it's very young, it's very much in development. I'm constantly adding features, and I'm constantly breaking the API, which would mean that I would have to I'd have to maintain this CLI manually, which would be absolutely awful. It would take me basically as much time as it would to actually make the engine, which is just terrible. Not to mention it's quite boring. So what I'm making right now is a tool which will automatically generate this C# code, or rather this C++ CLI code for me, automagically, I should say. Okay, so it's going to basically read all of the source files from the actual engine, from Sparky core, and it's going to output Sparky CLI versions of that. Okay. It's pretty cool. I'm using Clang as the parser, essentially, for all of that code. And it's pretty much 80% complete, I would call it right now. So it's almost done. And I'm going to probably commit that into a separate repository. It'll probably be an external link here called Sparky Tools or something like that. But that's the basic idea. So that's actually almost done, which is awesome. The other reason that that's really important, apart from just being able to use it for tools and whatnot, is because of basically just like a sandbox. Having a C# sandbox, and you can see I've already got one actually. This kind of demonstrates a bit of the, so this is just like mouse position literally, and just printing that to the console right now. But basically the cool thing with this is that if I want to teach you guys, for example, a new feature, like let's learn about how to implement Bloom today, right? Or something like that, I can actually use the C# sandbox and make a video on how to implement Bloom, for example. And the cool thing with that is, again, it's going to be really, really simple to do because it's in C# and there's not all this C++ stuff in the way, but you still get all the performance benefits from having C++ as the engine and whatnot. So it's really, really good for just playing around with and experimenting with certain things without having to actually go into C++ land. Although if I was writing an actual game, like probably not like a Ludum Dare game potentially, but like an actual commercial game, I would obviously do that in C++. But that's just something to think about. So anyway, that's the CLI side of it. The other side of it is actually more or less engine code. None of it is committed yet. It's all still in progress, but basically another big thing that I'm doing is I'm actually changing the entire rendering API. What I mean by that is right now we're using OpenGL, of course. So if we go into something like Batch Renderer, which is our main renderer right now, 2D renderer, you can see that it's filled with GL calls, okay? So it's filled with essentially a bunch of calls to all of this OpenGL stuff. That's a problem. The reason that's a problem is because I eventually want to integrate Direct3D into this as well, so that we can use both DirectX and OpenGL as our rendering platforms, essentially, as our rendering APIs. So because I want Direct3D support, it's going to be obviously very, very difficult to have that by just hard coding OpenGL everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm actually abstracting that into like a platform type deal, into an abstraction layer, so that we can essentially just have a generic kind of, you know, API draw elements or something function, and then based on which implementation you decide to use, it will either use OpenGL or Direct3D to actually perform that GPU operation. Okay, so that's the idea. That's one of the things I'm doing, and that of course is taking a lot of time. It's not difficult or anything like that, but it's just very time consuming. Okay, and that's also going to work with all of this stuff, for example. So like the current way to specify vertex layouts, as you can see, is pretty messy. It's just the OpenGL raw kind of way, and that's not very nice. I've actually written a much better system for how you can just push a bunch of types essentially, and it will calculate most of this stuff for you automatically. And you can just basically push a bunch of types into a vertex array, or into a buffer rather, and then add it to a vertex array, and then you're all good. Also, I might potentially get rid of vertex arrays as well, have maybe 2 options, because not all platforms support vertex arrays, and there's really a lot of stuff to talk about. But the idea is that's kind of what I'm doing. Okay, those are 2 major features that are in progress right now. And I may stream them if there's enough interest for me to stream these. The reason I've been avoiding streaming these is they're not particularly fun to watch, I think, because they're just a lot of refactoring and a lot of just, especially with the C# kind of CLI generator, there's a lot of just mundane kind of, let's generate code, kind of, oh, this didn't work, let's think about how we might do this, and it doesn't end up being that productive, and it's not that easy to write either, so there's a lot of just like kind of staring and trying to figure things out, and I'm not the hugest fan of doing that on stream, just because I don't think it provides, I don't think it's necessary to stream that, because it's not really that interesting. Like if I was working on like a 3D renderer, for example, that's something that is much more fun and something that that will, of course, be of, I would imagine, be of more interest to people. But if I'm wrong, if you do want to see that, just drop a comment below, let me know, and we'll see what happens with that. Okay, the other thing that will happen, and this is like a larger kind of long-term goal / feature, 3D. I've been meaning to get 3D in for a really long time, and I really just haven't had time. The next step, you can actually see, I believe, that I've split up. I don't know if this stuff is committed. I kind of hope it is, but I split up. Where is this? Graphics layers. Yeah, it is. So layer has now been split up into just a generic layer, and you can see that this layer is essentially just init, on event, tick, update, and render. And this actually does need to be updated somewhat, but layer 2D is like the 2D only kind of thing, and you can see it's got a renderer 2D attached to it, it's got a bunch of renderables, it's got a shader, one shader as well, so each layer has its own shader, and it's got a projection matrix. Yep, that's fine. And it's got all of that stuff, and that kind of gets applied to one layer, and this is very specifically 2D only, okay? So I have started separating things into 2D and 3D kind of things. I may actually make another folder in here that deals with 3D, because again, this engine does support, or this engine should support both equally, like not kind of do 2D in a 3D way. I don't want to do that. I just want to have complete 2D functionality and complete 3D functionality as optimal as they can be. But yes, 3D is definitely coming soon. I did tweet out recently and I asked what you guys wanted to see just generically in terms of videos, and a lot of people want to see 3D stuff. So once I do get started on the 3D things, and as I start making 3D more and more in this engine, because I know that it's something that a lot of people really want to see, I will absolutely be making dedicated videos, probably standalone videos that aren't really part of a series, just going over all the different things that go into a 3D renderer and just a 3D engine, essentially. Okay, now there are so many things here that need to be done. I've actually got a massive list of things right on my other monitor here that I might go through some of them right now, but just a few things that need to happen. We need to have some kind of build pipeline. We need some kind of automated project setup, so there'll be a tool that will ideally set up like a Visual Studio project for you and all that stuff. I actually started writing a Visual Studio plugin about half a year ago, which I kind of stopped for no reason other than it wasn't that necessary. I think now it would be more necessary though. Controller support, so I need to add game controller support. That should be relatively simple, but that'll be one of those things that's platform dependent. Windows is the platform that I'm leaning towards right now, just because I use it the most. But eventually we'll add different platforms, of course. Direct 3D support, one of the things that is actually a kind of a longer term type deal. We also need some kind of, we need to finish CLI, of course. There are some random optimizations here and there that I want to think about. Of course, entity component system is something I want to implement as well as Box 2D. I've actually already put that into the engine. As you can see, it's under dependencies, I believe. Here it is, Box 2D. So it's in there, but it needs to be actually hooked up. And for that, I need some kind of entity component system, which I need to put in. Then, of course, there's a bunch of stuff with 3D. That needs to happen. WebGL still does require GLFW, so I actually might undo my whole getting rid of GLFW thing, because as you know right now, I basically got a Win32 window class, which basically just uses the Win32 API to actually generate a window, and that's all nice, but again, it's not 100% necessary. I just wanted to do it so that this engine had as less dependencies. Does that work? I don't even know. As little dependencies is probably what I meant to say. As little dependencies as possible. But I might bring back GLFtoppy just because Emscripten and WebGL, whoops, still need that stuff. The other thing is Android and iOS. Those are not things that I want to rush, okay? Those are not things that I am necessarily itching to get done. The reason is I work at a mobile game studio called FireMonkeys, which is an EA studio, and I work on the engine team there, and I develop mobile stuff pretty much all day. Not to say that it's explicitly mobile, like it would be the same for whatever platform you were developing it for, because I'm not developing, I have done actual Android kind of layer stuff, so down in that kind of link, but usually it's kind of abstract and away from platform-dependent code, but still, I'm not really rushing to do that since I do that every day at work. So I would rather get other platforms such as Windows, Mac, and Linux down first, and web, and then maybe I could put Android and iOS in. iOS is going to be a little bit more difficult to actually do just because I need a Mac. I've got a Mac, but it's going to be difficult to switch between the two and stream, and it just needs a bit of a better setup, really. But Android is generally pretty easy to put in because NVIDIA have some great tools for that. And that shouldn't be too difficult. I actually do have an instance of this engine running on Android. I did that a while back. I just never committed it, but it totally works. There's nothing here that doesn't work with Android, really. You need to write a very, very thin Java interface that just loads this library, really. So it's very easy to do, and that's something that we need to do. But again, Unix kind of stuff, so Mac and Linux come before that in terms of my priorities. And as far as bugs and issues goes, there are some shader compilation issues on AMD cards, which I need to figure out. I don't have an AMD card or really access to any kind of AMD card, so I'm going to probably get help from you guys for that. But I already know why it's happening. I just have to actually fix up the shader. It's like a one-line fix. Just because AMD have some problems. AMD's GLSL compiler has a few issues with texture arrays and whatnot, or arrays of textures, I should say. And also WebGL did have a few glitches when I made Shift back in Love and Dare 32 or whatever it was, that I need to fix up. Now, speaking of bugs and issues as well, I know this video is dragging on now, but I did say I wanted it to be pretty detailed. As far as issues go, the GitHub page, I'm actually going to start using this much more seriously. I really wish that GitHub had a better system for dealing with issue tracking, because this is kind of annoying. Like, it's not really as complicated as something like Jira, for example. So Jira is way more comprehensive, and I actually quite like it. It's much better structured, it's much more in-depth, and you can see things like timelines, and you can basically set things as in progress, for example, and you can assign it to people. You can do that here as well, but this is very, very minimalistic. And I guess you can have milestones and things like that, but basically the reason I want to use this, I could set up a Jira for Sparky. If you guys are interested in that, or you think that would be better, then let me know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to keep it as GitHub issues, just because I know everyone has a GitHub account, and you guys are probably much more likely to contribute to these kind of list of issues than you are to actually making an account for Jira and contributing with it there, as well as I'm not sure what the licensing for that would be, because there's a lot of people who want to probably contribute. Here, anyone can leave a comment, for example, or open an issue, which is good. But you can see there's actually quite a few issues open. I'm going to start adding issues here. These are not just for issues, by the way. These are for tasks as well. I know it says issues, but we're not going to use it for that. We're going to use it for issues, so bugs, and tasks as well. There's a bunch of different labels you can give it, such as bug, for example, enhancement, right? All that stuff that I'll add more of, that we can work on. But basically, I want to kind of move this forward. The other thing I want to talk about is the Cherno.com. There is the Sparky Engine forum, right? So on the Cherno.com/forums, we have the Sparky Engine forum, which has all of the stuff, and a lot of people post here and whatnot. It's been a while since I've really been active in this, but I might bring some of that back more as we start doing more regular videos and more regular interaction and whatnot with that. But that's kind of the idea, okay? So I will do something like that. and we will get that show on the road. So anyway, that's basically an overview of what Sparky, of what will happen with Sparky. Game programming right now is going to, I'm going to do that as I feel motivated to do it, which is kind of, I don't know. It's just such an old project for me that it feels like I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, honestly. But Sparky is basically kind of what I want to focus on, really. And I will be focusing on that much more throughout Christmas and all of those holidays. So anyway, that is the plan. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, please, if you have any kind of ideas or any comments, really, or you want me to do this a certain way, or you're really excited for me to continue doing this. Please let me know. Hit a like button on the video if you want to see more of Sparky and whatnot. Yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the future, and possibly on live streams as well. The other thing you should do as well is follow me on Twitter. So it's twitter.com/thecherno, because I do, this is my Twitter. So you can see that I talked about Sparky and whatnot today in the morning, for example. So I do a lot of that stuff. And if you want to really kind of keep on point, you know, keep updated about Sparky and about me generally, then you want to you would want to follow me there, because I announce a lot of things there, and I talk to the community a lot there as well. So anyway, that's going to wrap up this video. It's a very massive video, but hopefully I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, and we'll see what the future holds, really. But I'm really excited to be working on this, and hopefully we can produce something that is quite cool. Okay, I will see you guys later. Goodbye.